Good morning and welcome to Our Issues Milwaukee. I'm your host, Andrea Williams. Our focus this morning is on several subjects. We're going to kick things off focused on mental health and self-care. My guest is Robert Allen. He's a mental health activist, growth coach, and author. He's also the founder and CEO of New Dimensions Consulting Services, LLC, a company here in Milwaukee that specializes in helping businesses, entrepreneurs, and everyday people maximize their talents by engaging them through innovative mental health initiatives. How are you, Robert?
I am absolutely well. Thank you for having me on.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you join us, and this is considered a holiday weekend, so I think it's important to talk about the importance of self-care and taking a little time just to clear our minds. So, ironically, you wrote a book that's titled Self-Care. Let's start the conversation. So, let's start this conversation by having you tell us more about your book.
Well, so self-care, let's start the conversation. It has been a baby of mine for years. And it was birthed out of me working in various industries from education, law enforcement, and healthcare, of just seeing in mental health and seeing people stressed, seeing people burn out. And me, myself, having spaces in my life where I was on the cusp of burnout. And so it was in the making for a long time. And I finished it up and I put it out there.
All right. And so when we look at some of the things that you talk about in this book, you say healthy self-care concepts and practices are something that are very important, and exposing the myths
Yes.
really something. So what are the myths?
Well, generically, I believe self-care, the term has lost its savor. Generically, you will hear people say, well, you just need to go take some time for yourself, practice self-care. And it became a byword that people just used. In the book, I redefine what self-care really means. And I say it's filling someone's cup in their most needful space, which means that self-care is progressive and it changes. As we grow, as we mature, as we go through different parts of life, what's going to fill our cup is going to be different. From my 20s to my 40s, self-care looks very different.
Yeah, that's a great point. And your definition of R&R, I guess it's safe to say, is retreating, reflecting, replenishing, and restoring ourselves at every level in our lives, which really goes to what you just said. Your needs change as we get older. But for the last year and a half of actually just going through this pandemic, people have gone through mental health scenarios on many levels, needless to say. And so you're looking at situations from not really knowing what the future holds, kids being homeschooled, working from home while those kids are being homeschooled, and also just the devastation of losing our loved ones. So the list, of course, goes on and on. So how do we begin to break the trauma that we've lived through, especially those essential workers who never really had a chance to practice self-care because they were so busy taking care of others?
Well, I'm so glad that you asked that. For me, it's still taking a chance or making a space where you can get away. And so we're typically an all or nothing people. We want it all one way and we want it all. But self-care can be practiced on the job. Self-care can be practiced if you have extended time for you to retreat. So I was just speaking to someone today and I said, when was the last time you did something for someone else? They said all the time. I said, when was the last time you did something for you? And they said, I can't remember. And she said to me, well, I always thought if I did something for myself, even if it was praying, if I prayed for me, that it was considered selfish. So what I would tell people is very important to retreat, get away. Just if it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, if you can get away and take yourself away from the distractions, the chaos, the busyness, so you can have just a couple minutes of reflection. what works good for me? What changes do I need to make? And then to refresh. What things refresh you and replenish you? When was the last time you just got away for a couple of days and it was just you? A lot of time we want to include everyone else into our self-care, which doesn't make it self-care at all. It makes it a vacation with friends and family.
Mm.
And so helping people understand that self-care in many ways deals with you being pulled away from things that pull you.
Very interesting, and I'm sure it's something that people have to take a moment to think about, because even if you're in a situation where you can't necessarily get away, you can find a quiet place in your home, really just taking a few moments, like you said, to take in what's important and taking that breather. But we also know that self-care is not just a bubble bath, right?
No. It's not. It's not. And so, again, it's going to differ from person to person. And that's why when I did the definition, it's whatever it is that's going to replenish you or fill your cup in your most needful space. Mm-hmm. So for what worked for your mother or your brother, your sister or friends may not work for you. So let's find what works for you.
All right, so as we live in a society where people are expected or accustomed to working long hours, passing on vacation days, and burning the candle at both ends, all of that comes with significant consequences, which may include, but are not limited to, as you alluded to, burnout, depression, anxiety, and even resentment. So how can business leaders and managers actually cultivate an atmosphere of positive health in the workplace?
Well, I believe it has to start from the top down, and leaders have to begin to understand what is self-care. So from a strictly a productivity standpoint, if you have workers and managers and leaders who are stressed, then they're not giving the company 100%. They're giving the company a version of themselves that may operate, but don't operate at maximum capacity. Mm. But if you begin to say, well, let's focus on work-life balance. Let's focus on things that's going to actually rejuvenate you and energize you. Then how would that affect your bottom line in terms of customer satisfaction and employee satisfaction? So from a productivity standpoint, if you have people who are more relaxed and people that feel more calm, then they're going to give you more. So for leaders and CEOs and entrepreneurs, self-care and understanding the concept of self-care as being more than just a bubble bath or more than just a break, but implementing this into your company and creating an atmosphere for your employees to say, okay, I need help without being penalized, is something that will greatly help your organization in the long run.
Well, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that whole scenario of just being on the job and, that time to make the donuts feel. So in every sense of the word, people want to be able to kind of break that cycle and definitely give all that they can while they're on the job. And I'm sure managers and administrators want that same thing. So there are actually dimensions of self-care that include emotional, environmental, financial, physical, social, spiritual, and occupational. So like you said, across the board, people have to figure out what's important for them at the stage of life they're in. So how do you begin to balance these levels of wellness?
Well, it goes back to the 4 R's that we spoke about before. A lot of times removing yourself from the chaos so that you can begin to reflect and create a roadmap. Reflection typically is one of those things that, I'll get to it when I get to it. Mm-hmm. But you cannot reflect in the midst of chaos. So you have to remove yourself. So the retreat is important, and the 4 R's build upon each other. So when you retreat, you take a step away from, you reflect, you begin to think about what works well. And then when you replenish, those are things that, okay, this is the game plan. These are the things that's going to work for me in this space, in this area. And regroup, which is the last, is we're going to put them all together and move forward with this plan with a calm and peaceful state of mind that I have created or developed my plan for my journey.
Yeah, I take my R's from the book of Whitley Gilbert, relax, relate, release. It always seems to work. So once we learn to balance these important things, what are the benefits of physical and mental self-care?
So, I am a licensed therapist in the state of Nevada, and I have a lot of mental health professional and friends. And what we have seen over the course before COVID, even throughout COVID, is the amount of people who deal with stress. Mm-hmm. And so if you work in a stressful job, you're used to that stress, and it becomes a natural everyday thing that you don't believe that you're actually stressed because you've worked in that environment for so long. So if I can say anything worth its weight in gold, it will be dealing with stress, because stress equates to over 110 million deaths a year. And that's numbers based off the CDC, who say that they have 110 million stress-related deaths a year. So stress, limiting stress, identifying stress is absolutely important, because stress is what leads to anxiety. It leads to depression. It leads to panic attacks. It leads to strokes and heart attacks. So once we're able to get a grip and get a grasp in identifying what those stressors are in our life and minimizing it by taking that time and taking that step away, that will aid better for everyone's mental health.
Mm-hmm. And as we wrap up this segment, is there anything else that you wanted to share with our viewers today?
It's like you said, it's a holiday weekend. Please go and enjoy the holiday. And if you can, take that time to take a step back. Make sure you practice the 4 R's and get a game plan, because this is you. It's only one you. So the time is now to invest in you. So invest in yourself.
This is a great time to get started. Robert, thank you for joining us today, and hopefully someone watching can take your words and really put them into action.
I appreciate you. Thank you for having me on.
It's my pleasure. Robert Allen is a local mental health activist, growth coach, and founder and CEO of New Dimensions Consulting Services, LLC. He's also the author of the book, Self-Care, Let's Start the Conversation. For more information, visit ndcssolutions.com. When we return to Our Issues Milwaukee, we'll turn our focus to a local neighborhood center that's been helping families and individuals in Milwaukee obtain self-sufficiency since 1958. We'll talk to the executive director of the Silver Spring Neighborhood Center right after this.